All right, here's our problem set. It says circle any fractions that are equivalent to a whole number. Record the whole number below the fraction. Okay? So what we're going to do here is count by 1/3 and start at 0/3 and end at 6/3. Okay? So we're going to count by 1/3. So 0/3, 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, 4/3, 5/3, 6/3. See, we counted by 1/3, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we just happen to be dealing with thirds. And we ended at 6/3. Great. Then we're going to circle any fractions that are equivalent to a whole number. That would be 3/3. That is equal to 1. It's one whole. There's another whole number on this one too. Can you tell which one it is? That's right, it's 6/3. All right? So there's 1, there's 0, there's 1, and there's 2. All right? Does that make sense? All right, if I have 6/3, I've got 2 holes. So now down here, it's going to ask me, it says count by 1/2. Start at 0 and end at 8/2. Okay. So basically, we're starting at 0/2. I'm going to count up to 8/2. Okay. See how that goes? Seven halves and then 8/2. All right, so you can see the numerators, they just counted right up, okay? From 0 through 8, okay? And now we're gonna circle all the whole numbers, okay? So I'm gonna circle 0/2, because that's 0 is a whole number, right? See how they circled it up here? So 0 is a whole number. Then I'm gonna count this, 2/2. 2/2 is a whole, it's 1. 4/2, that's 2. 6/2, that's 3. And then 8/2 is 4. Right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And those are the halfway points in between each of those numbers. All right. Okay, we're off to a good start today. So here it says use parentheses to show how to make the following number sentence. Okay. All right. So here is and make ones in the following number sentence. So all these fourths are equal to 3. So what we're going to do is use parentheses to group these by their whole numbers. So I'm going to group 4 1/4 together. All right? Because that is going to make 1. See that? And then I'm going to group these 4 1/4 together. That's going to make 2. And then finally 4 1/4 together. That makes 3. So you see how when I group these 1/4 in groups of 4, I get 4/4, 4/4, and 4/4, which is going to equal to 3. Okay? Great. So we're moving along. We're doing great. So multiply as shown. Draw a number line to support your answer. So here it's 6 times 1/3. So what they did was say, all right, 6 times 1/3. So 3 times thirds. So 3 1/3 is 1, and 3 more 1/3 is 2. Okay? So basically what that equals here is that 6 1/3 is equal to 2 times 3/3. All right? And that equals 2. All right? And the reason why they got 2 times 3/3 is because they basically showed you those groups of 1/3. All right, let me explain that further for you. So if you know that the multiplication sign can stand for groups of, right? And it also can be repeated addition. So if I have 6 groups of 1/3, what does that look like? It looks like this. Repeated addition. So there's 6 groups of 1/3. And then what we did was we grouped those into 2 groups, because that, right, is 2 groups of 3/3, right? Isn't this 3/3? And isn't that 3/3 together, right? That's right. So they group those as two groups of 3/3, right? And that is where this comes from, okay? So they showed the number line of counting up by thirds to get to wholes, and we ended up with two groups of 3/3. See? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And that equals 2, all right? So we're going to show you here, and then I'm going to show you the easier way to do it. So 6 groups of a half, okay? So let's show this number line. Let's put the starting point at 0, okay? And then let's put this ending point here. I'm not sure what that's going to be yet, okay? So let's just leave it blank. All right? So 6 groups of a half. Well, let's how many halves make a whole? All right, so 2 halves make a whole. So let's count by halves. 1 half, 2 halves. Let's do that over here, actually. Let's count out 6 halves. So 6 of these. 1 half. I'm just going to count up 2 halves, 3 halves, 4 halves, and 5 halves, and 6 halves. See how I counted by halves 6 times? That gave me how much? Here's my whole number. All right? How many, what's that whole number? So this here would be 1, 2, 3. That's equal to 3 whole. Okay? 3 wholes. So my top number is going to be 3. Okay. So this is the way it looks. All right, let me get my 1 in there, and then get my 2 in there. There's my 0, 1, 2, 3. So 0, get my halfway points in. All right, and here I've got 2 groups of 1 half, 2 groups of 1 half, and 2 groups of 1 half. Okay. So now what this shows is 6 times 1 half is equal to 3 groups of 2 halves, which equals 3. Okay? Now, that's a really long way to get to a simple answer. Let me show you something different here, okay? Now, 12 times 1/4. So basically what this is telling me is that I've got 12 groups of 1/4, okay? So we have this, I could say, groups of, okay? So if I say I've got 12 groups of 1/4, all I need to do now is find out how many 1/4 is 12. 12 1/4. So wouldn't that be 12 fourths? Right? 12 fourths. If I counted 1/4 12 times, wouldn't I end up at 12 fourths? Right? 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, 5/4, 6/4, 7/4, 8/4, 9/4, 10/4, 11/4, and 12/4. So I would end up, if I have 12 groups of 1/4, I've got 12 fourths. So guess what that equals? 4 goes into 12 3 times with 0 left over. So that's 3 wholes. So 12 times 1/4 is 3. Did you see how that worked? Okay? So essentially what I did here was take 12, and all I had to do was multiply that 12 by the numerator. Right? 12 times 1 equals 12, and then I'm dealing with fourths. That's all I do. That's all I have to do. Okay? Let's try this one. Okay, so it says multiply as shown. Write the product as a mixed number. Okay, I can do that. Draw a number line to support your answer. The number line to me is more confusing. And doing all this, it's more confusing. The number line here I can understand, but then it gets a little wonky here. So what we're going to do is talk about this. 7 copies of 1/2. A copy of a half is just counting by halves. They wrote that down just to confuse us. So what is this? It's 7 groups of 1/2. If I count by 1/2 7 times, what do I end up with? So this is what we do. So if I count by 1/2 7 times, I'm going to end up with 7 halves, right? 7 times 1 is 7. Now I need to make this into a mixed number. How many times does 2 fit in the 7? 3 times, right? There's 1 left over. I just bring it over. So this is 3.5. Okay? So what does that look like? We'll count by halves. 1/2, 1 whole, right? 2 halves, no, 1/2, 1 whole. 1.5, 2 wholes. 2.5, 3 wholes, 3.5. Okay? So here's 10 times 1/4. So 10 groups of 1/4. That's just 10 fourths. Okay? Then I convert this to a mixed number. 4 goes into 10 2 full times, because it's 8, right? With 2 left over. And 4 is my number. 2 and 2/4. Okay? So if I counted by 1/4 10 times, I'd have 10 fourths. And then finally, it's 14 thirds down here, okay? 14 thirds. So if I count 1/3 14 times, I'm going to end up with 14 thirds, right? 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, 4/3, 5/3, right? So 3 goes into 14 4 times, because 4 times 3 is 12. There's 2 left over, and 3 is my denominator, 4 and 2/3, okay? Okay, so that's all for the lesson today. Feel free to do some whiteboard work with some more examples that your teachers might make up for you. But other than that, it's a good job today. All right, kids, we'll see you tomorrow.